Welcome to Sleepy Science Odyssey. Tonight, psychology, the scientific study of what makes us human, exploring the mind's hidden patterns, the roots of happiness, the nature of resilience, and the subtle forces that shape our thoughts and behavior. We'll move slowly through decades of research on well-being, connection, meaning, and growth. From the neuroscience of gratitude to the power of purpose, from flow states where time disappears to the practices that build lasting strength and contentment. If you're new here, this channel is for people who need something to think about before they can stop thinking. Real science, evidence-based findings, just quiet facts in the dark. Let's begin. Happiness has a genetic component, but genes are not destiny. Twin studies comparing identical twins who share 100% of their DNA with fraternal twins who share about 50% suggest that approximately 40–50% of the variation in happiness levels across individuals can be attributed to genetic factors. This genetic influence, often called the happiness set point, means people tend to return to a baseline level of well-being after major life events, both positive and negative. A famous 1978 study by Brickman, Coates, and Janoff-Bullman examined lottery winners and accident victims who had become paraplegic. Surprisingly, lottery winners were not significantly happier than controls after about a year, and accident victims adapted and returned to near their baseline happiness despite life-changing injuries. This hedonic adaptation initially suggested that efforts to increase happiness might be futile, but subsequent research revealed hope. While genetics influence baseline happiness, about 40% is influenced by intentional activities and mindset, things you can control. Only about 10% is determined by life circumstances like income or possessions. This means deliberate practices can significantly impact well-being despite genetic predispositions. The genetic set point determines where you start, but intentional effort determines where you can go. Research has identified specific activities that reliably increase happiness. Expressing gratitude, practicing kindness, nurturing relationships, engaging in meaningful activities, exercising regularly, and savoring positive experiences. These aren't temporary fixes but sustainable practices that, when maintained, lead to lasting improvements in well-being. Social connections are the strongest predictor of happiness and longevity. The Harvard study of adult development, begun in 1938, is one of the longest-running studies of adult life ever conducted. Researchers have followed 724 participants for over 85 years, tracking their health, relationships, careers, and well-being. The study has produced one clear, consistent finding: good relationships keep us happier and healthier. Robert Waldinger, the current director, summarizes it simply. The clearest message from this 75-year study is that good relationships keep us happier and healthier, period. The quality of relationships matters more than quantity. Having 500 social media friends doesn't predict well-being, but having 2 or 3 close friends you can call at 3 a.m. does. People with strong social connections live longer, recover faster from illness, experience less cognitive decline with aging, and report higher life satisfaction. Conversely, loneliness and social isolation are as harmful to health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day or being an alcoholic. They increase mortality risk, raise blood pressure, weaken immune function, and accelerate cognitive decline. The mechanism works through multiple pathways. Socially connected people have someone to help during illness or hardship, reducing stress. They have someone to encourage healthy behaviors and discourage unhealthy ones. They experience less chronic stress, which damages cardiovascular and immune systems. The Harvard study participants who were most satisfied with their relationships at age 50 were the healthiest at age 80. The quality of close relationships was a better predictor of healthy aging than cholesterol levels, blood pressure, or genetic factors. Those with better relationships maintained cognitive function longer, experiencing less memory decline and dementia. It's not just romantic relationships that matter. Friendships, family ties, community involvement, and even weaker social ties all contribute. Regular interactions with acquaintances, the barista who remembers your order, neighbors you chat with, create a sense of belonging that benefits mental health. Gratitude practice increases well-being and life satisfaction. Gratitude, the quality of being thankful and appreciating what you have, is one of the most well-researched practices for increasing happiness. Dozens of studies over 2 decades demonstrate that regularly practicing gratitude leads to increased well-being, life satisfaction, optimism, and even physical health. One influential study by Emmons and McCullough in 2003 assigned participants to write about things they were grateful for, daily hassles or neutral events. Those in the gratitude group reported higher levels of well-being, exercised more, had fewer physical symptoms, and were more optimistic. The benefits emerged within weeks and were maintained throughout the study. Gratitude works through several mechanisms. It shifts attention from what's lacking to what's present, countering the brain's natural negativity bias, the tendency to focus on threats and problems rather than blessings and opportunities. It increases savoring of positive experiences, making good moments last longer psychologically. It strengthens social bonds because expressing gratitude makes others feel valued. And it blocks negative emotions. It's difficult to feel envious or resentful while feeling grateful. Brain imaging studies show that gratitude activates regions associated with reward, empathy, and social cognition. When people engage in gratitude practices, activity increases in the ventromedial prefrontal cortex and anterior cingulate cortex, regions involved in moral cognition and reward processing. Practicing gratitude over time appears to create lasting changes in brain activity, making grateful thinking more automatic. Research suggests writing down 3 things you're grateful for several times per week is more effective than daily practice. Daily practice can become rote and lose impact. The items can be large or small: a supportive friend, a beautiful sunset, good health, a kind gesture. The key is specificity and genuine feeling. Gratitude doesn't mean ignoring problems or pretending everything is fine. You can acknowledge difficulties while still appreciating what's good. Flow states occur when challenge and skill are perfectly matched. Flow is a state of complete absorption in an activity where time seems to disappear, self-consciousness fades, and you feel simultaneously focused and relaxed. Psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi first described flow in the 1970s after interviewing artists, athletes, musicians, and others who reported these optimal experiences. Flow occurs when specific conditions are met. The activity must have clear goals, you know what you're trying to accomplish. It must provide immediate feedback, you can tell how you're doing as you work. And most critically, the challenge must match your skill level. If the challenge exceeds your skills, you feel anxious. If your skills exceed the challenge, you feel bored. Flow exists in the sweet spot where challenge and skill are balanced, and both are relatively high. This is why flow often occurs during activities like rock climbing, playing instruments, coding, surgery, or competitive sports, activities with clear goals, immediate feedback, and adjustable difficulty. During flow, the brain enters an efficient state called transient hypofrontality, temporary reduction in prefrontal cortex activity. The prefrontal cortex, involved in self-reflection, time awareness, and internal monologue, quiets down. This explains several characteristics of flow: time distortion, hours feel like minutes, loss of self-consciousness, you're not thinking about how you look, and mental clarity, no internal chatter. Flow is intrinsically rewarding. It feels good while it's happening, not just afterward. Research shows that people who experience flow regularly report higher life satisfaction, better performance in their domains, and greater overall well-being. Flow at work is associated with higher productivity, creativity, and job satisfaction. The key to experiencing more flow is finding the right challenge-skill balance. If you're bored, increase the challenge. If you're anxious, build skills through practice or reduce the challenge temporarily. Over time, as skills increase, you must continually increase challenges to maintain flow, creating a growth spiral. Exercise is as effective as medication for mild to moderate depression. Decades of research demonstrate that regular exercise has profound effects on mental health. Meta-analyses combining results from dozens of studies consistently show that exercise reduces symptoms of depression and anxiety, with effect sizes comparable to antidepressant medications for mild to moderate cases. A 2018 meta-analysis of 49 studies found that exercise interventions significantly reduced depression, with effects maintained over time when exercise continued. The mechanisms are multiple. Exercise increases production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, a protein that supports the survival of existing neurons and encourages growth of new neurons and synapses. BDNF levels are lower in people with depression, and increasing BDNF through exercise may reverse some neurological effects. Exercise also increases production of endorphins, natural opioids that reduce pain and create feelings of well-being. Exercise increases levels of several neurotransmitters associated with mood regulation: serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine. These are the same neurotransmitters targeted by antidepressant medications. Exercise also reduces inflammation throughout the body, including in the brain, and inflammation plays a role in depression. Exercise improves sleep quality, which affects mood. Beyond biochemical effects, exercise has psychological benefits. It provides a sense of accomplishment and mastery, building self-efficacy. It offers distraction from rumination, repetitive negative thinking that maintains depression. It can be social if done with others, and it improves physical health, which correlates with mental health. The amount needed isn't extreme. Studies show benefits from as little as 30 minutes of moderate exercise several times per week. Walking, swimming, cycling, dancing, various activities provide mental health benefits. The key is regularity and moderate intensity. A brisk 30-minute walk 5 days a week can significantly improve mood. Exercise appears to be protective. It doesn't just treat existing depression, but prevents future episodes. People who exercise regularly are less likely to develop depression than sedentary people. Mindfulness meditation reduces stress and changes brain structure. Mindfulness, paying attention to the present moment with openness and without judgment, has been practiced for millennia but recently studied scientifically. Over 6,000 peer-reviewed papers on mindfulness have been published, with rigorous studies demonstrating benefits for mental health, physical health, and well-being. Mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, developed by John Kabat-Zinn in 1979, is an 8-week program teaching mindfulness meditation, and mindful yoga. Hundreds of studies have evaluated MBSR, showing it reduces stress, anxiety, depression, and pain while improving quality of life. Mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, MBCT, reduces relapse rates in people with recurrent depression by about 50%, as effective as maintenance antidepressants. Brain imaging studies reveal how mindfulness changes the brain. Regular meditation increases gray matter density in regions associated with learning, memory, emotion regulation, and self-referential processing, particularly the hippocampus and prefrontal cortex. It decreases gray matter in the amygdala, a region involved in stress and anxiety. These structural changes correspond to functional changes. Experienced meditators show reduced amygdala reactivity to emotional stimuli and increased prefrontal amygdala connectivity, suggesting better emotion regulation. Mindfulness works partly by reducing rumination, repetitive negative thinking about past or future events. Rumination maintains depression and anxiety, keeping attention focused on problems and worst-case scenarios. Mindfulness trains attention to stay with present-moment experience rather than wandering into unhelpful thoughts. This doesn't mean ignoring problems, but engaging with them more skillfully. Mindfulness also increases acceptance, acknowledging reality as it is rather than resisting or denying it. Paradoxically, acceptance often leads to change. When you stop fighting uncomfortable emotions, they become less overwhelming and pass more quickly. The practice is simple but not easy. Sit comfortably, pay attention to your breath. When your mind wanders, which it will constantly, gently return attention to the breath. The wandering isn't failure. Noticing and returning attention is the practice. Even brief daily practice provides benefits. Studies show improvements from as little as 10-15 minutes of daily meditation. Having a sense of purpose in life increases longevity. Purpose, the feeling that your life has meaning and direction, is associated with living longer and staying healthier. Studies following thousands of people for years or decades consistently find that those with a strong sense of purpose live longer than those without, even controlling for age, health status, wealth, and education. One study of over 6,000 adults found that those with the highest sense of purpose were 15% less likely to die during the 14-year follow-up than those with the lowest. Purpose doesn't just predict longevity, but disease risk. People with higher purpose are less likely to develop Alzheimer's disease, stroke, heart attack, and disability. They recover better from illness and injury. They maintain cognitive function better as they age. The protective effects appear across health outcomes, suggesting purpose affects fundamental biological processes. How does purpose promote health? Multiple pathways are involved. People with purpose engage in healthier behaviors. They exercise more, eat better, sleep more consistently, are less likely to smoke or abuse substances. They have reasons to take care of themselves because they have things they want to accomplish. Purpose also reduces chronic stress and inflammation, both of which damage health over time. And purpose promotes social connection, which itself protects health, because purposeful activity often involves working with others toward shared goals. Purpose doesn't require grand ambitions or changing the world. It's about feeling that your life matters and has direction. For some, purpose comes from work, feeling their career makes a contribution. For others, it's family, raising children, or caring for aging parents. It might be creative pursuits, community involvement, spiritual practice, or personal growth. The content matters less than the feeling that what you do matters and aligns with your values. Importantly, purpose doesn't require achieving your goals. It's about the striving itself, working towards something meaningful. Research distinguishes between hedonic well-being, feeling good, and eudaimonic well-being, having purpose and meaning. Both contribute to life satisfaction, but they have different effects on health. Hedonic well-being alone doesn't predict health as strongly as eudaimonic well-being. Helping others increases your own happiness. Extensive research demonstrates that prosocial behavior, acts that benefit others, boosts the helper's well-being. This isn't just correlation but causation. Experimental studies, where researchers randomly assign people to help others versus control conditions, show that helping increases happiness. A famous study by Dunn, Acnin, and Norton gave participants $5 or $20 and randomly assigned them to spend the money on themselves or on others. Those assigned to spend on others reported greater happiness at the end of the day than those who spent on themselves, regardless of the amount. The effect held across income levels and countries, from Canada to Uganda. Why does helping feel good? Multiple mechanisms contribute. Helping activates reward centers in the brain, the same regions activated by food and other pleasures. This helper's high involves release of endorphins and activation of the ventral striatum and other reward-related areas. Helping also satisfies fundamental psychological needs. Autonomy, you chose to help; competence, you successfully made a difference; and relatedness, you connected with others. Meeting these needs promotes well-being. Helping also shifts attention from self to others, reducing rumination and self-focused worry. Depression and anxiety involve excessive self-focus. Helping others interrupts this pattern, directing attention outward. It provides perspective, seeing that others struggle too, that you have something to offer. The benefits extend to physical health. People who volunteer regularly have lower blood pressure, better immune function, and lower mortality rates than non-volunteers. A study of over 7,000 adults found that those who volunteered for 2 or more organizations had 44% lower mortality over 5 years compared to non-volunteers, even controlling for age, health, and other factors. Volunteering was more protective than exercising 4 times a week. The type of helping matters less than regularity and genuine connection. Volunteering, donating money, helping a neighbor, mentoring, caregiving, various forms provide benefits. The key elements are freely choosing to help, actually impacting the recipient, and connecting with those you help. There's a limit. Helping too much beyond your capacity leads to burnout. The optimal amount balances generosity with self-care. Spending money on experiences creates more lasting happiness than buying possessions. Research consistently shows that experiential purchases, buying experiences like concerts, meals, travel, or classes, provide more lasting satisfaction than material purchases, buying things like clothes, electronics, or furniture. The difference emerges in multiple studies using various methods. Why do experiences provide more lasting happiness? Experiences improve over time in memory. You remember the highlights and forget the mundane parts, so a trip becomes more positive in retrospect than during the actual experience. Possessions worsen over time. New items are exciting, but quickly become ordinary as hedonic adaptation occurs. You habituate to the new car or phone until you barely notice it. Experiences are more central to identity than possessions. You are what you've done more than what you own. Traveling to another country, learning an instrument, or running a marathon becomes part of your life story in ways that owning nice furniture doesn't. When asked who are you, people describe their experiences and activities more than their possessions. Experiences are social in ways possessions usually aren't. Shared experiences strengthen bonds. You might remember a concert or trip with friends for decades. Even solitary experiences connect you to others who have had similar ones, providing conversation topics. Possessions can be isolating. Showing off new purchases can make others envious. Talking about experiences tends to generate positive social interaction. Experiences are less prone to social comparison than possessions. It's easy to compare cars or phones. Is yours newer or more expensive? Such comparisons reduce satisfaction. Experiences are harder to compare. Your vacation and someone else's were different, not better or worse. This reduces the corrosive effects of keeping up with others. None of this means possessions never bring happiness. Some purchases are experiential even though they're physical objects. Camping gear that enables outdoor adventures, instruments that enable playing music, or sports equipment that enables activities. These experiential possessions provide lasting satisfaction because they enable ongoing experiences. The distinction isn't about physical versus non-physical, but about whether the purchase is about having or doing. Strong relationships are built on small moments more than grand gestures. Research by John Gottman, who has studied couples for over 40 years, reveals that relationship success depends on everyday interactions more than dramatic expressions of love. Gottman's studies, observing couples in detail and following them for years, can predict with over 90% accuracy whether couples will stay together or divorce based on how they interact during brief conversations. The key isn't absence of conflict, all couples fight, but how partners respond to each other's bids for connection in everyday moments. A bid is any attempt to connect. A comment about your day, pointing out something interesting, asking a question, or seeking support. Gottman identified 3 possible responses: turning toward, engaging with the bid; turning away, ignoring or missing the bid; or turning against, responding negatively. In stable, happy relationships, partners turn toward each other's bids about 86% of the time. In relationships that eventually end, the rate is only 33%. This seems minor. It's just whether you respond when your partner mentions something, but thousands of these tiny interactions build or erode the relationship foundation. Turning toward doesn't require grand responses. If your partner says, "Look at that bird," you don't need to give a speech. Just looking and acknowledging, "Oh, nice," is turning toward. It shows you're paying attention, you value their thoughts, and you're willing to connect. Turning away might be staying focused on your phone. Turning against might be dismissing their interest. These micro moments of connection or disconnection accumulate over time. Each instance is tiny and forgettable, but thousands of them shape whether partners feel seen, valued, and loved, or ignored, unimportant, and alone. Grand romantic gestures are nice, but they can't compensate for chronic turning away in daily life. Conversely, consistent attention to small moments creates strong bonds even without expensive dates or dramatic declarations. This principle extends beyond romantic relationships. Friendships, parent-child relationships, and work relationships all depend on accumulation of small positive interactions. Modern technology makes this both easier and harder. Phones enable connection across distances, but also distract from in-person interactions. Optimism is learnable and protects against depression. Optimism, expecting positive outcomes and believing you can influence events, is associated with better mental and physical health, higher achievement, and greater life satisfaction. This isn't about ignoring reality or denying problems, but about how you explain events, particularly adversities. Research by Martin Seligman shows that explanatory style, how you explain why things happen, predicts depression, persistence, achievement, and health. Pessimistic explanatory style involves 3 dimensions: Seeing bad events as permanent, I'll never succeed, pervasive, I'm bad at everything, and personal, it's all my fault. Optimistic explanatory style involves seeing bad events as temporary. This particular attempt didn't work. Specific, I struggled with this task, but I'm good at other things. And external when appropriate, several factors contributed, not just me. For good events, the pattern reverses. Optimists see them as permanent, pervasive, and personal, while pessimists see them as temporary, specific, and external. These patterns aren't fixed traits but learned habits that can be changed. Seligman developed cognitive therapy techniques teaching people to recognize and challenge pessimistic thinking. When something bad happens, notice your automatic thoughts. Are you catastrophizing, assuming the worst? Are you overgeneralizing, assuming one failure means total incompetence? Are you personalizing, blaming yourself for things beyond your control? Challenge these thoughts with evidence. Studies show that learning optimistic explanatory style reduces depression and increases well-being. A meta-analysis of cognitive therapy found it as effective as antidepressant medication for depression and more effective at preventing relapse, probably because it teaches skills that continue protecting after therapy ends. Optimism isn't about positive thinking divorced from reality. Unrealistic optimism, ignoring genuine risks, can be harmful. The goal is realistic optimism, accurately seeing problems but believing you can address them, acknowledging challenges but not catastrophizing. Optimism affects achievement through persistence. When optimists encounter setbacks, their explanatory style maintains motivation to continue trying. Pessimists, explaining setbacks as permanent and pervasive, often give up. Optimism also affects health. Studies show optimists have better cardiovascular health, stronger immune function, and lower mortality rates. Sleep is essential for emotional regulation and memory consolidation. Sleep isn't just rest, it's an active process essential for brain function, emotional well-being, and physical health. Yet modern society chronically deprives people of sleep. The average adult needs 7-9 hours per night, but about 1/3 regularly get less than 7 hours. This sleep debt has serious consequences for mental health and functioning. Sleep deprivation impairs emotional regulation. After one night of poor sleep, the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, becomes hyperreactive, responding more strongly to negative stimuli. Meanwhile, connectivity between the amygdala and prefrontal cortex weakens, reducing the brain's ability to regulate emotional reactions. The result: sleep-deprived people are more irritable, emotionally reactive, and less able to manage stress. Even partial sleep deprivation, sleeping 6 hours instead of 8, impairs emotional regulation. Sleep is crucial for memory consolidation. During sleep, particularly during REM sleep and slow-wave sleep, the brain replays experiences from the day, strengthening important memories and integrating them with existing knowledge. Sleep-deprived people have difficulty forming new memories and recalling information. Students who stay up all night studying often perform worse than those who sleep, even though they spent more time studying, because sleep consolidates what was learned. Sleep also affects physical health in ways that feed back to mental health. Poor sleep weakens the immune system, increases inflammation, disrupts metabolism, and raises risk for cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and obesity. These physical health problems affect mood and energy, creating a cycle where poor sleep leads to poor health, which further impairs sleep and mood. The relationship between sleep and mental health is bidirectional. Mental health conditions like depression and anxiety disrupt sleep, but sleep problems also increase risk for developing these conditions. Insomnia doubles the risk of later developing major depression. Treating insomnia reduces risk of depression and improves outcomes when depression is present. This means addressing sleep isn't just about feeling rested, it's a core component of mental health care. What promotes good sleep? Keep a consistent sleep schedule, going to bed and waking at the same times daily, even weekends. Create a cool, dark, quiet bedroom. Temperature around 18 degrees C is optimal. Avoid screens before bed. Blue light from phones suppresses melatonin and delays sleep onset. Nature exposure reduces stress and improves mood. Spending time in natural environments, forests, parks, gardens, beaches, has measurable effects on psychological and physiological well-being. Hundreds of studies demonstrate that nature exposure reduces stress, anxiety, and depression, while increasing positive mood, attention, and cognitive performance. The effects occur quickly, with improvements detectable after as little as 5-20 minutes in nature. One influential study by Ulrich found that hospital patients recovering from surgery who had a window view of trees recovered faster, needed less pain medication, and had fewer complications than patients whose windows faced a brick wall. This finding has influenced hospital design. Similar effects occur in other settings. Students in classrooms with views of nature pay attention better, workers with nature views are more satisfied and less stressed, and residents of housing with nearby green space report better mental health. The mechanisms are multiple. Attention restoration theory, proposed by Rachel and Stephen Kaplan, suggests that nature replenishes depleted attentional resources. Modern life requires sustained directed attention, focusing on tasks, ignoring distractions, inhibiting impulses. This is effortful and draining. Natural environments engage attention effortlessly and gently. A bird singing, leaves rustling, water flowing, allowing directed attention mechanisms to rest and recover. After spending time in nature, people perform better on attention-demanding tasks. Stress reduction theory, proposed by Roger Ulrich, emphasizes nature's calming effects. Exposure to natural environments reduces physiological stress markers. Heart rate slows, blood pressure drops, cortisol levels decrease, and muscle tension eases. These changes occur within minutes and are observed even with nature videos or pictures, though direct exposure is more powerful. Forest bathing, or Shinrin-yoku, spending mindful time in forests, has been studied extensively in Japan. Forest bathing doesn't involve hiking or exercise, but simply being present in a forest, walking slowly, using all senses. Studies show that forest bathing reduces stress hormones, improves immune function, lowers blood pressure, and enhances mood. Some effects may come from phytoncides, airborne chemicals released by trees that humans inhale. In lab studies, phytoncides increase natural killer cell activity, part of the immune system that fights infections. You don't need pristine wilderness to benefit from nature. Urban parks, tree-lined streets, gardens, and even indoor plants provide benefits. A study in the UK found that people who moved to greener neighborhoods showed sustained improvements in mental health. Acts of self-compassion increase resilience and reduce anxiety. Self-compassion, developed as a construct by researcher Kristin Neff, involves treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding you'd offer a good friend who's struggling. It has three components: self-kindness, being warm and understanding toward yourself rather than harshly self-critical, common humanity. Recognizing that suffering and imperfection are part of the shared human experience, not signs you're uniquely flawed, and mindfulness, holding painful thoughts and feelings in balanced awareness rather than over-identifying with them. Research consistently shows that self-compassion is associated with greater emotional well-being, less anxiety and depression, more resilience, and healthier behaviors. Importantly, self-compassion predicts these positive outcomes better than self-esteem does. Self-esteem, feeling good about yourself, is valuable but fragile. It fluctuates based on performance and social comparison, drops after failure, and sometimes involves unrealistic self-aggrandizement. Self-compassion is more stable because it doesn't depend on being better than others or succeeding at everything. You can be self-compassionate even when you fail or fall short. Self-compassion doesn't mean self-indulgence or avoiding responsibility. Research shows that self-compassionate people are actually more likely to take responsibility for mistakes, not less. They can acknowledge failings without being overwhelmed by shame, making it easier to learn and grow. When you beat yourself up over mistakes, you often become defensive or avoidant. Self-compassion creates psychological safety to see yourself clearly and make changes. Nor does self-compassion undermine motivation. Critics worry that being kind to yourself means letting yourself off the hook. Research shows the opposite. Self-compassionate people are more motivated to improve and more persistent after setbacks. Self-criticism might provide short-term motivation, but it's corrosive over time, increasing fear of failure. Self-compassion maintains motivation while reducing fear. Self-compassion can be practiced actively through exercises. The self-compassion break. When you notice you're struggling, pause and acknowledge the difficulty. This is really hard. Connect to common humanity. Everyone struggles sometimes. I'm not alone. Offer yourself kindness. May I be kind to myself in this moment. These phrases might feel awkward initially, but with practice, they become more natural and genuinely soothing. Physical self-compassion practices include soothing touch, placing your hand on your heart when distressed. This activates the caregiving system, releasing oxytocin and creating feelings of safety. Strong sense of control over your life predicts better health and longevity. Perceived control, believing you can influence outcomes through your actions, is a powerful predictor of well-being, health, and even how long you live. This doesn't mean believing you control everything, but believing you have agency over important aspects of your life. Research spanning decades shows that people with higher perceived control have better mental health, cope better with stress, maintain healthier behaviors, and live longer. A famous series of studies by Ellen Langer in the 1970s demonstrated control's importance in nursing homes. Residents on one floor were given a plant to care for and told they had control over various aspects of their daily schedule. Residents on another floor were given a plant that staff cared for and were told staff would make decisions. The groups were similar demographically and in health status. After 18 months, the residents given control were more active, happier, and healthier. Remarkably, 30% of the comparison group had died compared to only 15% of the group given control. Perceived control doubled mortality. The mechanism involves stress biology. When you feel control, challenges are interpreted as manageable. Your stress response activates appropriately, then shuts down. When you feel lack of control, the same challenges feel overwhelming, activating a chronic stress response. Over time, chronic stress damages cardiovascular and immune systems, accelerating disease and aging. Feeling helpless, lacking control, is one of the most toxic psychological states. Learned helplessness, studied by Martin Seligman, occurs when repeated exposure to uncontrollable negative events leads to passive acceptance, even when control becomes possible. In experiments, animals exposed to inescapable shocks later failed to escape even when escape was available. They'd learned helplessness. Humans show similar patterns. The opposite of learned helplessness is learned optimism and agency. When you experience situations where your efforts produce results, you develop a sense of control that generalizes to new challenges. This is why early success matters. It builds confidence that efforts pay off. In adulthood, cultivating control means focusing on what you can influence. You can't control many things: other people's behavior, the past, many aspects of circumstances. But you can control how you respond, where you direct attention, how you interpret events, and what actions you take. Practical steps to increase perceived control: set achievable goals and work toward them. Make choices, even small ones. Break large problems into smaller, manageable steps. Focus on process over outcomes. You control your effort, not always results. Regular acts of kindness boost happiness for both giver and receiver. Intentionally performing kind acts for friends, strangers, or yourself reliably increases well-being. A meta-analysis of 27 experimental studies found that people randomly assigned to perform acts of kindness reported significantly higher well-being than control groups. The effects occur across cultures, ages, and types of kindness. The benefits come through multiple mechanisms. Kindness satisfies the fundamental need for relatedness, connection to others. It provides a sense of meaning and purpose. Your actions made someone's day better. It generates gratitude from recipients, which feels good to receive. It builds positive social interactions, strengthening relationships and community. And it shifts focus from self to others, reducing rumination. Interestingly, the happiness boost from kindness is larger when kind acts are varied rather than repetitive. Doing the same kind thing repeatedly leads to hedonic adaptation. The benefit diminishes over time. Varying your kind acts, different actions, different recipients, maintains novelty and prevents adaptation. The magnitude of kindness matters less than intentionality and connection. Grand gestures aren't necessary. Small acts offering a genuine compliment, listening attentively, helping carry something, buying someone's coffee, sending an encouraging message, provide benefits comparable to larger acts. What matters is the intention to benefit someone and making a genuine connection. Random acts of kindness have become popular, but research suggests it's more effective when acts are conscious and intentional rather than truly random. Planning to perform kind acts, thinking about opportunities, choosing actions deliberately, reflecting on experiences afterward, produces larger well-being benefits. Kindness toward yourself also matters. Self-kindness isn't selfish but necessary for sustained well-being. You can't pour from an empty cup. Many people, particularly those in caregiving roles, neglect self-care while helping others. This leads to burnout. Including yourself in the circle of compassion is essential. A simple practice: commit to performing 5 acts of kindness in one day each week. Research by Lyubomirsky found this schedule particularly effective. The acts can be small or large, for strangers or loved ones. 5 acts in one day creates a noticeable boost. Track your kind acts to maintain awareness. Write them down. Reflect on how the acts affected you and the recipients. Savoring positive experiences amplifies their emotional benefits. Savoring, deliberately attending to, appreciating, and enhancing positive experiences increases their impact on well-being. Often, positive moments pass quickly as attention moves to the next thing. Savoring slows this process, extending the positive emotion and creating richer memories. Research by Bryant and Veroff shows that people who regularly savor positive experiences report higher life satisfaction and fewer depressive symptoms than those who don't savor, independent of the number of positive events they experience. Savoring can occur before, anticipation, during, present moment savoring, or after reminiscence and experience. Anticipatory savoring involves looking forward to positive events, imagining an upcoming vacation, planning a celebration, or thinking about seeing friends. This extends pleasure beyond the event itself. Studies show that anticipating a vacation provides more happiness than remembering it. The pleasure of looking forward spreads across weeks. Present moment savoring involves fully engaging with positive experiences as they occur. When eating a delicious meal, slow down and notice flavors and textures. When walking in nature, observe details, colors, sounds, the feeling of sunshine. When with loved ones, give full attention. This mindful engagement deepens the experience and creates richer memories. Strategies for present moment savoring include sharpening perception, focusing attention fully, absorbing, creating a mental photograph, sharing, discussing the experience with others, expressing, outwardly showing enjoyment and gratitude, feeling thankful. Reminiscent savoring involves recalling positive memories, looking at photos, talking about past experiences, or mentally replaying happy moments. This reactivates positive emotions associated with the memories. Research shows that people who regularly reminisce about positive events maintain higher well-being, particularly during stressful periods. Positive memories provide psychological resources that buffer against stress. Some people naturally savor more than others, and this trait correlates with happiness. But savoring can be cultivated. A simple exercise: each day, identify 3 good things that happened. Write them down and briefly reflect on why each occurred and what you appreciated. This practice, called 3 good things, has been shown in multiple studies to increase happiness and reduce depression for months after just 1 week of practice. Modern life works against savoring. Constant busyness leaves no time to appreciate good moments. Digital devices fragment attention. Social media encourages performing experiences for an audience rather than savoring them personally. Intentional savoring counters these forces. When something good happens, pause, notice it, appreciate it, let yourself feel the positive emotion fully. Resilience can be built through specific practices and mindsets. Resilience, the ability to bounce back from adversity, adapt to challenges, and maintain functioning during difficult times, is not a fixed trait, but a set of skills and attitudes that can be developed. Research on resilience identifies several key factors that protect people during adversity. Strong social connections are perhaps the most important. Having people to turn to for support, whether family, friends, or community, helps people cope with stress and recover from setbacks. Social support provides both practical help and emotional validation. People with strong support networks are more resilient than those who face challenges alone. A sense of purpose and meaning helps people persevere through difficulties. When you have reasons to keep going, things you care about beyond your immediate comfort, you're more likely to persist through hard times. Viktor Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps, wrote about how having meaning, even in the most horrific circumstances, helped people survive. Those who had something to live for, someone waiting for them, unfinished work, maintained will to live more than those who didn't. Optimistic explanatory style, as discussed earlier, contributes to resilience. Optimists interpret setbacks as temporary and specific rather than permanent and pervasive, which maintains motivation to continue trying. They also take credit for successes, which builds confidence in their ability to influence outcomes. Self-compassion supports resilience by allowing people to acknowledge difficulties without harsh self-judgment. When you treat yourself kindly during hard times, you maintain emotional resources needed to cope. Self-criticism during adversity depletes energy and motivation. Problem-focused coping, actively trying to solve problems rather than just managing emotions about them, builds resilience. This doesn't mean ignoring emotions, but addressing practical aspects of challenges while acknowledging feelings. Taking action, even small steps, increases sense of control. Acceptance of what cannot be changed is another resilience factor. The Serenity Prayer captures this. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Fighting against unchangeable reality wastes energy and creates suffering. Accepting it frees resources for addressing what you can influence. Flexible thinking helps people adapt to changing circumstances. Rigid thinking, insisting things must be a certain way, makes it harder to adjust when situations change. Cognitive flexibility allows finding new solutions, reframing situations, and adapting goals when original plans aren't working. Growth mindset increases achievement and persistence. Psychologist Carol Dweck's research on mindset reveals that beliefs about the nature of ability profoundly affect motivation, learning, and achievement. People with a fixed mindset believe intelligence and talent are fixed traits. You either have them or you don't. People with a growth mindset believe abilities can be developed through effort, learning, and persistence. These different beliefs lead to different patterns of behavior. When people with fixed mindset encounter difficulty, they interpret it as evidence they lack ability. This is threatening to their self-image, so they avoid challenges, give up easily, and feel discouraged by setbacks. They see effort as pointless. If you have ability, things should come easily. Trying hard means you're not naturally talented. They feel threatened by others' success and ignore feedback. In contrast, people with growth mindset interpret difficulty as a normal part of learning. Challenges are opportunities to develop skills. Setbacks are informative, showing what to work on. Effort is the path to mastery. They're inspired by others' success and learn from criticism. These different approaches lead to different outcomes over time. Fixed mindset leads to avoiding challenges and giving up quickly, which limits learning and achievement. Growth mindset leads to embracing challenges and persisting through setbacks, which promotes learning and achievement. The difference compounds over time. Initially similar students diverge in performance as those with growth mindset continue developing while those with fixed mindset plateau or decline. The good news is mindset can change. Dweck and colleagues have developed interventions teaching students that intelligence is not fixed but can grow with effort. These interventions, sometimes as brief as a single session, improve academic performance, particularly for struggling students. The key is changing how people interpret difficulty and effort, from signs of inadequacy to normal parts of the learning process. Parents and teachers can cultivate growth mindset by how they give praise. Praising intelligence or talent, "You're so smart," can reinforce fixed mindset. Praising effort and strategies, "You worked really hard on that, you tried different approaches," reinforces growth mindset. The difference seems subtle, but has significant effects on children's motivation and resilience. Growth mindset applies beyond academics. In work, relationships, health, any domain where people face challenges and need to persevere. Believing that improvement is possible through effort promotes better outcomes than believing ability is fixed. Loneliness is as harmful to health as smoking or obesity. Research over the past few decades has revealed that chronic loneliness has profound effects on physical health, not just mental health. Meta-analyses examining data from hundreds of thousands of people show that social isolation and loneliness increase mortality risk by 26–32%, comparable to well-established risk factors like smoking, obesity, and physical inactivity. Loneliness increases risk for cardiovascular disease, stroke, dementia, depression, and anxiety. It weakens immune function, increases inflammation, raises blood pressure, and disrupts sleep. These effects occur independent of other risk factors. Loneliness harms health, even controlling for smoking, drinking, exercise, and other behaviors. Why is loneliness so harmful? Multiple mechanisms contribute. Lonely people experience chronic stress because humans are social animals who evolved to live in groups. Being isolated activates threat responses because throughout human evolution, being alone meant vulnerability to predators and other dangers. This chronic stress state damages health over time. Lonely people also engage in less healthy behaviors. They exercise less, eat less healthfully, drink more alcohol, and sleep more poorly than socially connected people. Part of this is because social connections encourage healthy behaviors. Friends invite you to exercise, partners remind you to eat well, but part is also that loneliness depletes motivation and self-regulation. Loneliness also affects biological aging. Studies show that lonely people have shorter telomeres, protective caps on chromosomes that shorten with age, suggesting loneliness accelerates cellular aging. Their immune systems show patterns associated with chronic inflammation and reduced antiviral defenses. Importantly, loneliness is subjective. It's about feeling isolated, not about objective social isolation. You can feel lonely in a crowd or feel connected with just one or two close relationships. Some people are happy with minimal social contact, while others feel lonely despite having many acquaintances. What matters is whether your social connections meet your needs for intimacy, belonging, and support. The modern world creates conditions that promote loneliness. Geographic mobility separates people from family and childhood friends. Long work hours reduce time for socializing. Digital communication enables connection, but can't fully replace face-to-face interaction. Rates of loneliness have increased in recent decades, particularly among young adults, despite or perhaps partly because of increased digital connectivity. Addressing loneliness requires active effort to build and maintain social connections. Join groups based on interests, volunteer, attend community events, reach out to acquaintances and invite them to activities. Maintain relationships through regular contact. Quality matters more than quantity. Focus on developing a few close relationships rather than many superficial ones. Expressing emotions improves mental and physical health. For decades, researchers have studied whether expressing emotions versus suppressing them affects health. The evidence consistently shows that expressing emotions, particularly through writing or talking, improves both psychological and physical well-being. Psychologist James Pennebaker pioneered research on expressive writing. In typical studies, people are asked to write for 15–20 minutes on several consecutive days about their deepest thoughts and feelings regarding traumatic or stressful experiences. Control groups write about neutral topics. Those who write about emotions show improved immune function, fewer doctor visits, better mood, and improved academic and work performance in the months following the writing. The benefits occur even though the writing itself can be temporarily distressing. Brain imaging studies show that putting feelings into words, a process called affect labeling, reduces activity in the amygdala, the brain's threat center, and increases activity in prefrontal regions involved in emotion regulation. Simply naming an emotion, I feel angry, I feel sad, reduces its intensity. This is partly why therapy helps. Talking about emotions with a supportive listener provides relief. Suppressing emotions, in contrast, has costs. Studies where people are instructed to suppress emotional expressions while watching emotional videos show that suppression increases physiological stress, raising blood pressure and activating the sympathetic nervous system. Chronic suppression is associated with worse mental and physical health. People who habitually suppress emotions report more depression and anxiety and have more health problems. This doesn't mean you should express every emotion whenever you feel it. Context matters. Venting anger aggressively, for example, doesn't reduce anger and often increases it. The goal is thoughtful expression, acknowledging and processing emotions rather than either suppressing them or acting them out destructively. Writing about emotions is particularly effective because it encourages organizing and making sense of experiences. Simply venting without reflection doesn't provide the same benefits. The process of constructing a narrative, explaining what happened, how you felt, what it means, helps integrate the experience and reduce its emotional impact. Cultural factors affect emotional expression. Some cultures encourage expressiveness while others value emotional restraint. But across cultures, having outlets for emotional expression, whether through writing, talking with trusted others, or other means, supports well-being. Forgiveness benefits the forgiver more than the forgiven. Holding grudges and nursing resentment harms the person holding them. Research on forgiveness shows that forgiving others, even serious wrongs, benefits mental and physical health. People who forgive report less depression, anxiety, and anger, and have better cardiovascular health than those who hold grudges. Forgiveness doesn't mean condoning wrong behavior, forgetting what happened, or reconciling with the person who harmed you. It means letting go of resentment and desires for revenge. It's a decision to release the negative emotions associated with the offense. This benefits the forgiver by freeing them from rumination and bitterness. Studies by Frederick Luskin and colleagues at Stanford show that forgiveness training reduces anger, hurt, and depression while increasing optimism and hope. The training teaches people to take less personal offense, recognize how grievances harm them, and shift perspective toward compassion. Even brief interventions, a few hours over several weeks, produce lasting benefits. Physiological studies show that when people recall grudges, their blood pressure and heart rate increase and stress hormones rise. When they recall forgiveness, these physiological stress markers decrease. Chronic unforgiveness keeps the body in a state of stress, which over time damages health. Forgiveness is particularly difficult when the harm was severe or intentional, when the person hasn't apologized or made amends, or when ongoing contact means repeated harm. In these cases, forgiveness is a process, not a one-time decision. It may take time and repeated choices to let go of resentment. Importantly, forgiveness doesn't require telling the person or seeking reconciliation. You can forgive someone and still maintain boundaries or end the relationship if it's unhealthy. The forgiveness is for your benefit, releasing you from the burden of carrying resentment, not for the benefit of the person who harmed you. Self-forgiveness is also important. Many people struggle with guilt and shame over their own mistakes and failures. Self-forgiveness, acknowledging wrongdoing, taking responsibility, making amends where possible, and then releasing self-condemnation promotes well-being and supports behavior change. Chronic self-condemnation makes people feel stuck and hopeless, reducing motivation to change. Small wins accumulate to create significant change. Psychologist Carl Weick introduced the concept of small wins, modest achievements that can be accomplished quickly and that create momentum toward larger goals. Research shows that focusing on small wins is more effective for creating lasting change than attempting dramatic transformations. The power of small wins comes from several factors. They're achievable, reducing the overwhelm that comes with large, distant goals. They create positive emotions, accomplishment, and confidence that motivate continued effort. They demonstrate that change is possible, building self-efficacy. And they accumulate over time. Small changes compound into significant results. Teresa Amabile's research on workplace motivation found that making progress, even small progress, on meaningful work is the most powerful daily motivator. She calls this the progress principle. People who feel they're making progress report more positive emotions, higher motivation, and better performance. The size of the progress matters less than the sense of moving forward. Conversely, setbacks, even minor ones, are disproportionately demotivating. This has practical implications. Break large goals into small, specific steps. Focus on actions you can take today. Celebrate small achievements. Track progress visibly. These strategies maintain motivation and build momentum. The alternative, pursuing large, vague goals without breaking them down, often leads to feeling overwhelmed and giving up. Behavioral change research supports this. People trying to establish new habits are more successful starting small. Want to start exercising? Begin with 5 minutes a day rather than committing to hour-long workouts. Want to eat healthier? Add one vegetable to dinner rather than overhauling your entire diet. Want to meditate? Start with 2 minutes rather than 30. These small changes are sustainable. Once established, they naturally grow. The person who starts with 5-minute walks often gradually increases duration and intensity, but trying to do too much at once usually leads to burnout and giving up. James Clear's book Atomic Habits popularizes this principle, arguing that success comes from aggregation of marginal gains, improving by just 1% consistently. Small improvements compound over time. The math is striking. If you improve by 1% each day for a year, you end up 37 times better than when you started. This is the power of compound growth applied to personal development. Peak experiences can have lasting positive effects. Psychologist Abraham Maslow described peak experiences as moments of intense joy, wonder, awe, or fulfillment that temporarily transcend normal awareness. These might occur in nature, during creative work, in religious or spiritual practices, in intimate moments, or during flow states. Peak experiences are characterized by feelings of unity, transcendence of time and space, sense of sacredness or awe, positive emotions, and often lasting effects on the person. Research on peak experiences shows they can have transformative effects. People report increased well-being, clarity of purpose, changed values, and enhanced appreciation for life following peak experiences. A single intense positive experience can alter life trajectory, influencing decisions about relationships, careers, and priorities. Studies of psychedelic-assisted therapy show that peak experiences facilitated by these substances, when done in controlled, supportive settings, can produce lasting improvements in mental health. Cancer patients given psilocybin therapy report significant reductions in anxiety and depression that persist for months or years, often traced to mystical or peak experiences during sessions. While psychedelics are powerful tools for inducing peak experiences, they're not necessary. Peak experiences occur spontaneously and can be cultivated through practices like meditation, time in nature, or inducing experiences, creative activities, and practices that promote transcendence of ordinary awareness. Research by Dasher Keltner on awe shows that experiences of awe, feeling in the presence of something vast that transcends understanding, have measurable benefits. Awe reduces inflammation, decreases stress, promotes prosocial behavior, and increases life satisfaction. People can deliberately seek awe through exposure to natural wonders, great art, beautiful music, or contemplating ideas that expand their sense of the world. The key is openness to these experiences when they occur. Modern life often prevents peak experiences through constant distraction, overscheduling, and emphasis on productivity over presence. Creating space for experiences of beauty, transcendence, and awe, whether through regular nature walks, creative practice, meditation, or simply pausing to appreciate moments of wonder, enriches life and supports well-being. Post-traumatic growth can occur after adversity. While trauma is harmful, and no one should seek suffering, research shows that many people emerge from traumatic experiences with increased appreciation for life, deeper relationships, greater personal strength, recognition of new possibilities, and enriched spiritual life. This phenomenon, called post-traumatic growth, occurs in 30–70% of people who experience trauma, depending on the type of trauma and individual factors. Psychologists Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun developed the concept based on interviews with trauma survivors. They found 5 common areas of growth: greater appreciation for life and changed priorities, warmer, more intimate relationships, greater sense of personal strength, recognition of new possibilities or paths for life, and spiritual development. Not everyone experiences growth after trauma, and growth doesn't eliminate the pain and difficulty of the experience. People can simultaneously experience distress and growth. The presence of growth doesn't mean the trauma was good or necessary, only that humans have remarkable capacity to find meaning and develop strength through adversity. Factors that promote post-traumatic growth include deliberate rumination, actively processing what happened and what it means, rather than suppressing or avoiding social support, having others to talk with and receive help from, openness to change and new perspectives, personal strength and prior coping skills, and finding meaning in the experience. The process takes time. Growth often emerges months or years after the trauma, not immediately. Early focus is typically on survival and coping. Growth comes later as people integrate the experience and reconstruct their worldview. Therapy can facilitate post-traumatic growth by providing space to process experiences, challenging unhelpful beliefs, and helping people find meaning. Narrative therapy, where people construct coherent stories of their experiences, is particularly helpful. The concept of post-traumatic growth provides hope that suffering, while not sought or desired, can become part of a meaningful life. People can emerge not just restored to their previous functioning, but changed in ways they value, carrying wisdom and strength developed through difficulty. Our experiences reduce stress and increase prosocial behavior. Awe, the feeling of being in the presence of something vast that transcends current understanding, is associated with multiple benefits. Psychologists Dasher Keltner and Jonathan Haidt define awe as having 2 key features: perceived vastness, encountering something physically large, conceptually immense, or socially powerful, and need for accommodation. The experience challenges or expands your mental structures. Awe can be triggered by nature, grand vistas, starry skies, mighty trees, art, beautiful music, stunning architecture, moral beauty, witnessing acts of great virtue or compassion, or ideas, encountering concepts that expand understanding. Research shows that our experiences have measurable effects. They reduce inflammatory markers like cytokines, suggesting biological stress reduction. They promote prosocial behavior. People feeling awe are more generous, helpful, and cooperative. They increase life satisfaction and positive emotions. They make people feel smaller and less self-important, called the small self effect, which paradoxically increases well-being by connecting people to something larger than themselves. Brain imaging during awe shows activation in regions associated with reward and reduced activation in the default mode network, associated with self-focused thinking. This pattern suggests awe shifts attention from self to external world and reduces rumination. The small self effect explains many of awe's benefits. When you feel awe, your personal concerns and worries seem less significant. You feel part of something larger. This reduces stress and increases willingness to help others because you feel connected to them. Time perception also shifts during awe. People feeling awe report that time feels more abundant. They feel less rushed. This increased sense of available time correlates with greater life satisfaction and willingness to volunteer. Practically, you can deliberately seek awe experiences. Spend time in nature, especially places that inspire wonder. View great art or listen to moving music. Read about ideas that expand your understanding. Watch documentaries about the universe or nature. Seek encounters with vastness and beauty. Even brief moments of awe, a few minutes several times a week, accumulate benefits. Humor and laughter reduce stress and strengthen relationships. Laughter, often called the best medicine, actually does have measurable health benefits. Research shows that laughter reduces stress hormones like cortisol, increases immune cells and antibodies, releases endorphins, and temporarily relieves pain. Even anticipating laughter reduces stress. Studies where people know they're about to watch a funny video show stress reduction before the video even starts. Laughter also has social functions. It's highly contagious. Hearing laughter triggers laughter even without knowing what's funny. This contagion strengthens social bonds. Shared laughter creates connection, signaling safety, playfulness, and shared understanding. Research by Robert Provan shows that laughter is 30 times more likely to occur in social situations than when alone, suggesting its primary function is social bonding rather than individual enjoyment. In relationships, humor serves multiple roles. It reduces conflict. Couples who use humor during disagreements have more satisfying relationships. It provides perspective. Finding humor in situations reduces their threatening quality. It creates positive shared experiences. Couples who laugh together report higher relationship satisfaction. John Gottman's research on marriage found that humor during conflict is one marker of healthy relationships, as long as it's not at the partner's expense. Different types of humor have different effects. Affiliative humor, joking and amusing others to reduce tension and foster relationships, is associated with well-being. Self-enhancing humor, finding humor in life's challenges to cope with stress, also supports well-being. Self-defeating humor, putting yourself down to amuse others, and aggressive humor, mocking or ridiculing others, are associated with worse mental health and relationship quality. The ability to find humor in difficult situations, not trivializing them but finding moments of lightness, supports resilience. Viktor Frankl, writing about concentration camp survival, noted that humor was a tool for preserving humanity and sanity even in the most horrific circumstances. People who maintained capacity for humor, even dark humor, were more resilient. Practically, you can cultivate humor. Consume funny content, comedy shows, humorous books, funny videos. Spend time with people who make you laugh. Try to find humor in everyday situations. Notice absurdities and ironies. Share funny observations with others. While serious matters deserve serious treatment, maintaining capacity for laughter provides relief and connection. Digital device use affects attention, sleep, and well-being. Smartphones and other digital devices provide unprecedented access to information and connection, but also create challenges for well-being. Research over the past decade reveals several concerning patterns. Heavy smartphone use is associated with increased anxiety, depression, and loneliness, particularly among adolescents. Experimental studies where people reduce smartphone use show improvements in well-being, suggesting causation, not just correlation. Mechanisms include social comparison. Constantly seeing others' curated lives makes people feel inadequate. Attention fragmentation. Constant notifications and switching between apps reduces ability to focus deeply. Sleep disruption. Screen time, especially before bed, interferes with sleep. And displacement of face-to-face interaction. Time on devices replaces in-person socializing. The mere presence of smartphones affects interaction quality. Studies by Przybylski and Weinstein show that when phones are visible during conversations, people report feeling less connected and less empathy from their conversation partner compared to when phones are put away. This effect occurs even when phones aren't used. Just having them visible is distracting. Screen time before bed is particularly problematic. Light from screens, especially blue light, suppresses melatonin production, delaying sleep onset and reducing sleep quality. Studies show people who use devices before bed take longer to fall asleep, get less sleep, and report more daytime sleepiness. Social media use shows a complex relationship with well-being. Passive use, scrolling through feeds and viewing others' content, is associated with decreased well-being, increased social comparison, and feeling left out. Active use, posting content and interacting with others, has neutral or slightly positive associations. The difference suggests that using social media to genuinely connect with others is fine, but passive consumption promotes harmful comparisons. Not all digital use is harmful. Using devices for genuine communication, learning, creativity, or meaningful work is different from mindless scrolling. The distinction matters. Time spent on devices isn't the only metric. How you use them and what they replace matters more. Interventions that improve digital well-being include setting boundaries, no phones during meals or conversations, keeping phones out of bedrooms, designating phone-free times, turning off non-essential notifications to reduce interruptions, using apps intentionally rather than opening them habitually, and regularly taking breaks from social media. Even brief breaks improve well-being. Some research suggests a sweet spot for digital use. Moderate use, 1-2 hours daily, isn't associated with worse well-being and may support it through connection. Very low use, under an hour, is actually associated with slightly lower well-being, perhaps because some digital connection is beneficial. Heavy use, over 3-4 hours, clearly harms well-being. Finding the right balance requires self-awareness about how different uses affect your mood and well-being. Values clarification increases motivation and well-being. Living according to your values, the principles and qualities you care most about, is associated with increased well-being, motivation, and life satisfaction. But many people haven't clearly identified their values or structured their lives to align with them. Values clarification exercises help people identify what matters most and make choices accordingly. Common exercises ask people to consider: what qualities do you want to be remembered for? What principles guide your decisions? When do you feel most fulfilled? What activities feel meaningful regardless of outcomes? Who do you admire and what qualities do they embody? Values differ from goals. Goals are achievements or states you work toward. Values are ongoing directions and qualities. You can achieve a goal like running a marathon, but you never finish a value like health or growth. Values guide the goals you choose and how you pursue them. Research shows that clarifying values and acting consistently with them increases well-being. Self-determination theory, developed by Edward Desai and Richard Ryan, emphasizes that behavior motivated by values, called autonomous motivation, promotes well-being better than behavior motivated by external rewards or pressures, called controlled motivation. When you do things because they align with your values, you feel authentic and energized. When you do things for external reasons, you feel constrained and drained. Studies by Jeffrey Cohen and colleagues show that brief values affirmation exercises have surprising benefits. Students who write about their important values show reduced stress, better academic performance, and better health. The mechanism appears to be psychological resilience. Connecting to values provides resources for coping with challenges. Values also guide difficult decisions. When facing choices, asking which option aligns with your values provides clarity. This doesn't make decisions easy. Sometimes values conflict, but it ensures choices reflect what matters to you rather than being driven by shoulds or others' expectations. Common values include relationships, connection and intimacy with others, growth, learning and developing, creativity, expressing yourself and making things, health, caring for your body and mind, contribution, helping others or making a difference, integrity, living by your principles, autonomy, freedom and self-direction, achievement, accomplishing goals, adventure, exploring and trying new things, and spirituality, connection to something beyond yourself. Most people have 3-5 core values that most strongly influence their choices. Identifying these and regularly checking whether your life aligns with them helps maintain direction and meaning. When life feels empty or stressful despite outward success, often there's misalignment between values and how you're spending time. The power of yet transforms challenges into opportunities. Simple language choices affect mindset and motivation. Psychologist Carol Dweck emphasizes the power of adding yet to statements about ability. I can't do this versus I can't do this yet. The first implies fixed inability. The second acknowledges current state while leaving room for future development. This subtle difference has measurable effects. Studies show that teaching children to add yet when describing difficulties reduces helplessness and increases persistence. The word yet implies time and effort lead to improvement, current inability is temporary, learning is possible with practice, and challenges are normal parts of growth. The yet mindset applies beyond academic learning. I don't understand this yet. I'm not good at this yet. I haven't figured this out yet. These framings maintain hope and motivation during difficulty. They prevent the premature conclusion that you can't do something because you haven't done it in the past. The alternative is statements that imply permanent limitation. I'm bad at math. I'm not creative. I'm terrible at relationships. These fixed statements become self-fulfilling prophecies. If you believe you're bad at something innately, you avoid opportunities to practice and improve, ensuring you remain bad at it. Dweck's research shows that praise and feedback shape whether people adopt yet thinking. Praising process and effort, you worked hard, you tried different strategies, encourages yet mindset. Praising traits, you're smart, you're talented, encourages fixed mindset. When children praised for effort encounter difficulty, they maintain motivation and seek challenges. When praised for being smart, they avoid challenges that might reveal they're not actually smart. The same pattern appears in adults. Workplaces that emphasize growth and learning foster yet mindset. Those that emphasize innate talent or treat errors as failures foster fixed mindset. Leaders who model yet thinking, acknowledging what they don't know yet and showing commitment to learning, create cultures where people take risks and persist through difficulties. Practically monitor your self-talk. Notice when you make fixed statements about yourself. Add yet. Notice when others, especially children, make fixed statements. Help them reframe with yet. Celebrate effort and strategies, not just outcomes. Treat challenges as opportunities to develop rather than tests of existing ability. Behavioral activation treats depression by increasing engagement. Behavioral activation, a therapy approach for depression, is based on a simple but powerful principle. Increasing engagement in meaningful activities improves mood. Depression creates a vicious cycle. Low mood reduces motivation and energy. This leads to withdrawal from activities. Reduced activity decreases positive experiences and social contact. This further worsens mood, which reduces motivation more. Behavioral activation breaks this cycle by encouraging action despite low motivation. The approach doesn't wait for motivation to return. It recognizes that action often precedes motivation. You don't wait until you feel like doing something, you do it, and feeling follows. Research shows behavioral activation is as effective as cognitive therapy for depression, and sometimes more effective for severe depression. A major study by Demigian and colleagues found behavioral activation as effective as medication for depression and better at preventing relapse. The therapy is relatively simple. Work with a therapist to identify values and life areas that matter to you, activities consistent with those values that you've withdrawn from, small steps to re-engage in those activities, and barriers that prevent engagement. Then systematically schedule and engage in activities, starting small and gradually increasing. The activities aren't just pleasant, they're meaningful and aligned with values. Going for a walk because it supports health value, calling a friend because relationships matter, working on a project because creativity or contribution matters. Even when these activities initially feel effortless or unrewarding, consistent engagement gradually improves mood. The mechanism involves multiple factors. Activity provides structure and routine. It increases positive experiences and social contact. It builds mastery and accomplishment. It provides distraction from rumination, and it may affect neurotransmitter systems and neuroplasticity. The approach challenges the belief that you must feel motivated to act. Depression tells you nothing will help, you'll fail, it's not worth trying. Behavioral activation treats these as thoughts, not facts. You test them through action. Often, you discover that activity does help, even when your mind insists it won't. Self-directed behavioral activation is possible. Identify activities you've withdrawn from or that align with your values. Schedule specific times to do them. Start small, 10-minute walks, 5-minute phone calls. Track activities and mood to see connections. Gradually increase engagement. The key is consistency despite low motivation. Meaning in life predicts well-being better than happiness alone. Researchers distinguish between hedonic well-being, experiencing positive emotions and pleasure, and eudaimonic well-being, having meaning, purpose, and engagement. Both contribute to life satisfaction, but they're distinct and have different effects. Studies consistently find that meaning predicts long-term well-being better than happiness alone. People with high meaning but moderate happiness often have better outcomes than those with high happiness but low meaning. The reason is that meaning provides resources for coping with difficulty. When life is hard, meaning sustains you. Happiness depends on circumstances. When things go wrong, happiness decreases. But meaning can exist even during suffering. Viktor Frankl's book Man's Search for Meaning describes how finding meaning helped people survive concentration camps. Those with reasons to live, people waiting for them, work to complete, missions to fulfill, survived better than those without. This doesn't minimize the horror of camps, but shows that meaning provides resilience. Research by Roy Baumeister and colleagues examined differences between happy and meaningful lives. Happy lives are associated with getting what you want, good health, enough money, and easy circumstances. Meaningful lives are associated with using strengths to contribute to others, experiencing adversity and using it for growth, defining yourself through values and commitments, and connecting to something beyond yourself. Interestingly, stress and worry are unrelated to happiness. People with less stress are happier, but positively related to meaning. Meaningful lives often involve challenges. This suggests meaning comes from engagement with difficulty, not avoidance of it. Parenting illustrates the distinction. Parents often report lower happiness than non-parents. Parenting involves stress, worry, sleep deprivation, financial strain, less free time. But parents report higher meaning. The sacrifices and challenges feel worthwhile because they serve something beyond immediate pleasure. Similarly, meaningful work may not make you happy daily. It involves stress and demands, but it provides satisfaction and purpose. Pursuits that build meaning include using your strengths in service of something larger, nurturing relationships, particularly across generations, creative expression that outlasts you, contributing to community or causes you care about, personal growth and self-development, and spiritual or philosophical practices that connect you to transcendent values. Cultivating meaning doesn't mean ignoring happiness. Both matter. But when forced to choose, research suggests that meaning provides deeper, more enduring satisfaction. Physical touch reduces stress and promotes bonding. Humans are tactile beings. Physical touch, when welcome and appropriate, has powerful effects on both psychological and physical health. Research shows that touch reduces stress, lowers blood pressure and heart rate, decreases cortisol, increases oxytocin, the bonding hormone, and reduces pain. Studies of premature infants show that gentle touch promotes weight gain, faster development, and better health outcomes. The benefits extend throughout life. Hugs, holding hands, back rubs, massage, all provide measurable benefits. A study by Cohen and colleagues found that people who received more frequent hugs were less likely to develop cold symptoms when exposed to cold virus, and those who did get sick had milder symptoms. Social support generally protected health, but hugs explained about a third of the protective effect. Touch promotes bonding through oxytocin release. When you hug someone, hold hands, or cuddle, your brain releases oxytocin, which promotes feelings of trust, connection, and calm. This is why touch is central to parent-child bonding, romantic relationships, and friendships. Appropriate touch, adapted to the relationship and context, strengthens social bonds. Different cultures have different norms about touch. Some cultures are more tactile, with casual touch common between friends and acquaintances. Others reserve touch for close relationships. Understanding and respecting these norms is important, but within appropriate contexts, touch benefits both giver and receiver. Lack of touch harms health. Touch deprivation, common among people living alone or isolated, contributes to loneliness and health problems. This is particularly concerning for elderly people in institutions or living alone, who may go days without physical contact. Even brief touch, a hand on the shoulder, holding someone's hand, provides benefits. The modern world creates touch deprivation. Digital communication replaces in-person contact. People live alone more than historically. Concerns about appropriate touch. while important for preventing unwanted contact, sometimes lead to avoiding all touch. Finding ways to include appropriate, consensual touch supports well-being. Hugging friends and family, getting massages, cuddling with partners, playing with children, petting animals, which also provides touch benefits. Even self-touch, putting your hand on your heart during stress, provides some benefit. Writing about your best possible future self increases optimism. A simple exercise, writing about your best possible self, has been shown to increase optimism and improve mood. Developed by psychologist Laura King, the exercise asks, imagine your life in the future, after everything has gone as well as it possibly could. You've worked hard and succeeded at accomplishing all your goals. Think of this as the realization of your life dreams. Write about what you imagine. Studies show that people who write about their best possible self for 20 minutes daily for 3-4 days report increased positive emotions and life satisfaction in the weeks following. The benefits persist for weeks after the writing ends. The exercise works through several mechanisms. It helps clarify values and goals. Many people haven't articulated what they truly want. Writing makes it concrete. It promotes optimism by focusing attention on positive possibilities. It increases sense of control. Imagining success makes it feel more achievable. And it may function like mental rehearsal, preparing you to pursue goals. Importantly, the exercise isn't just wishful thinking or fantasy. The instruction emphasizes that you've worked hard and succeeded, not that success fell from the sky. The best possible self is achievable through effort, not a magical transformation. This keeps it realistic and motivating rather than escapist. The exercise also reveals priorities. When you imagine your best possible life, what does it include? What matters most? Often people discover that their current pursuits don't align with what they truly value. The exercise provides an opportunity to redirect effort toward what actually matters. Variations of the exercise target specific life domains: best possible relationship self, best possible career self, best possible health self. These focused versions help clarify goals in particular areas. The practice can be repeated periodically. As you change and grow, your best possible self evolves. Revisiting the exercise annually provides a check-in with your values and aspirations, ensuring your actions align with your desired direction. Combined with implementation intentions, specific plans for working toward the envisioned future, the exercise becomes more than imagination. It becomes a roadmap for creating the life you want. We've traveled far tonight, from genetic foundations of happiness to the power of connection, from gratitude that shifts attention to flow states where time disappears, from exercise that rivals medication to mindfulness that changes your brain. We've explored purpose that adds years to your life, kindness that boosts happiness, experiences that create lasting satisfaction, and relationships built through tiny moments. We've learned about optimism that can be cultivated, sleep that regulates emotion, nature that restores attention, self-compassion that builds resilience, and control that predicts health. But here's what ties everything together. These aren't just facts about human psychology in general. They're facts about you, about your mind, about your potential for growth and flourishing. The brain changes throughout life. Neuroplasticity means new connections form, old patterns can be rewired, and change remains possible regardless of age or history. The 40% of happiness influenced by intentional activities represents enormous room for improvement if you choose practices that promote well-being. You're not passive in your own psychological life. Yes, genetics matter. Yes, circumstances matter. Yes, past experiences matter, but they don't determine everything. The research shows clearly that intentional practices, gratitude, kindness, exercise, mindfulness, savoring, cultivating relationships, pursuing meaning, reliably increase well-being. These aren't secrets or tricks, but evidence-based tools available to anyone willing to practice them. The practices work not through magic, but through ordinary psychological and biological processes. When you practice gratitude, you're training attention to notice positive aspects of life. When you exercise, you're increasing neurotrophic factors that improve mood. When you cultivate relationships, you're meeting fundamental needs for belonging. When you help others, you're triggering reward systems that reinforce prosocial behavior. None of this means life will be easy or pain-free. Suffering is part of human existence. You'll experience loss, disappointment, failure, and adversity. But research provides tools for resilience, for facing difficulties without being destroyed by them, for maintaining well-being in challenging circumstances, for growing through adversity rather than being diminished by it. The science of well-being is ultimately hopeful. It says you're not stuck. Your happiness baseline isn't fixed. Your relationship patterns can change. Your explanatory style can become more optimistic. Your resilience can be strengthened. Your capacity for joy, meaning, and connection can grow. None of this happens automatically or effortlessly, but it's possible through sustained practice and intention. Start small. You don't need to implement everything at once. Choose one practice that resonates, maybe gratitude, maybe kindness, maybe exercise, maybe savoring. Practice it consistently for a few weeks and notice effects on your mood and outlook. Then add another practice. Over time, these practices accumulate, creating compound benefits. Remember that well-being isn't about feeling happy every moment. It includes experiencing the full range of human emotions, including sadness, anger, fear, and disappointment, while maintaining overall life satisfaction and sense of meaning. The goal isn't eliminating negative emotions, but developing skills to navigate them effectively while cultivating more positive experiences and deeper fulfillment. You're not just a passive observer of your own psychological experience. You're an active participant with significant influence over your well-being. The research provides a map showing which paths lead toward flourishing, but you must walk the path. No one can do it for you. The good news is that the path is accessible, the practices are simple, don't require special equipment or conditions, and work for people across ages, cultures, and circumstances. If you're still awake, there are more videos waiting. But if sleep found you somewhere along the way, then this worked exactly as it should. Rest well, knowing that your mind is not fixed but plastic, not determined but open to change, not limited to current patterns but capable of growth and flourishing. Sleep itself supports this growth, consolidating what you learned today, processing emotions, and preparing you for tomorrow's experiences and opportunities. While you sleep, your brain continues its work, strengthening neural connections that matter and pruning those that don't, consolidating memories of today's experiences, and integrating new learning with existing knowledge. This happens every night, usually without awareness, a quiet process of growth and maintenance that continues throughout life. Each day offers new chances to practice skills that promote well-being, to connect with others, to pursue meaning, and to build a life of satisfaction and purpose. The science is clear about what helps. The choice to practice is yours. See you next time.